Recorded live.
Welcome, friends and guests, to another episode of Freedom Fighters for America World Radio at www.freedomfightersforamerica.com and freedomfightersforamerica.us. Tonight we have a very special show. Mr. Tim Bowman will be with us. He will be discussing what happened to his fiancée, Pat Kobalak, and he'll be on to discuss that momentarily. So please stand by for that, and welcome to the show. Before I start the show tonight and introduce our guest, I'd like to say one thing, that this information you'll be receiving tonight is all too real, ladies and gentlemen. These stories from our guests here at Freedom Fighters for America World Radio are actual events that have taken place or that are taking place. And nothing here is contrived, nothing here is made up. So I want to introduce to you now Mr. Tim Bowman. Tim, welcome to the show. Tim?
Yes, hi, Chris. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you.
I wanted to discuss, I guess from the beginning, what happened to Pat, and, I guess we'll take this succinctly, how it all got started, who the players are, and such. Can you tell us when this happened, first off?
It happened, the day of the abduction was August 4th, 2008.
2008. Could you tell our listening audience what happened on that day in 2008?
Okay, it kind of was percolating a little bit before, and never had really a lot of contact with the family, so it wasn't like we were close people or anything, but we went to a rare picnic because I was quite ill that spring, and we decided to go out and see her other relatives in a rare occasion, and everything was, it kind of started out normal. Now we noticed nobody was talking to us. And Pat told the family of her medical condition of the thyroid illness and some other things that needed to be done, and they pretty much mocked her and thought she was crazy. And this was coming from one of the top environmental specialists in New York, this determination, medical determination. So, but anyways, she went to work the next day. We found out later that evening when we left that picnic, they went and filed a report with the police labeling her as a victim. And so we didn't really know what was going on, and a lot of things have become clear now in retrospect. But that's when they started to come up and contrive their story that she was in some kind of threat and in a very dangerous situation. And the reality was she was an environmentally, chemically poisoned person from, she basically had environmental illnesses, and she needed really specific doctors to treat this, and not many physicians really know how to deal with that kind of illness.
Right. So let me just stop you 1 second. So you went to a family event, and Pat was discussing that she had this thyroid problem, and
right.
This was diagnosed by a medical person?
Oh, sure, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Top environmentalist in the Eastern Coast.
Mm-hmm. And she was telling this to her family, who, in fact, decided not to believe that she was actually ill at that time?
Well, you know what it was they were mocking her, and because the doctor wanted her to have the mercury removed from her teeth because it was leaching into her blood, and it was coming up in the blood work, and it was affecting the thyroid, and she was going to go through to a bio dentist. It was done, and they were like saying, you cannot do that, your teeth will fall out, and just really mocking, and it was very kind of an ignorant kind of position on their part. I didn't really, I didn't know where it was coming from.
Yeah, so the symptoms of her illness was actually like a mercury filling that was placed in her teeth at a prior time?
Yeah, that was kind of partially of it. Yeah, she had a very, when Pat was a very young child, she was involved with the Manhattan Project with experimental thymus radiation. So it may have potentially damaged her thymus gland, and with the mercury, it may have just kind of pushed it over a little bit more where it started giving problems.
Okay, let's stop there. The Manhattan Project. She became a research subject for the Manhattan Project?
And about when she was 6 months old, her brother signed her up in some kind of a research with Dr. Bowman.
You're kind of breaking up on the call. Are you on a cell phone?
No.
Okay, so there seems to be some kind of interference on the call. So is this I can't really hear you, Tim. Is this a landline?
Yeah.
Yeah? There's a lot of interference on this phone. Yeah. Is it a computerized landline? Okay, I think your phone's being interfered with. You have an alternate phone that you can use? Yeah? You want to call back in on another line? I can't hear anything you're saying. Why don't you try calling back in? Maybe you'll get another, a better, call. Try calling back in. Okay, just 1 second, folks. Mr. Tim Bowman's going to call back in. Sometimes we have influences outside the realm that try to interfere with these interviews, whether it's being played by computer attack or by phone. And I know this is an ongoing issue now with Mr. Bowman and Miss Pat Kobalak. So, I wouldn't doubt there'd be any interference by these criminals who are attempting to keep her in this institution. But hopefully he'll call back in a minute or so, and we'll be able to continue the interview. But to run it down, Miss Kobalak was involved in the Manhattan Project. She was obviously a research experimentee. Okay, Tim's back on the call. Let me just open that line. Hold on 1 second. Tim? Tim, are you there? Tim, are you on the call? It says you are, but I don't hear anything. Tim? Tim, I don't have you on the call. What I'm going to do at this particular point, there is some information that Mr. Bowman put out in some YouTube videos, and I'm going to play the audios on those videos, and that'll give you a general idea to start. If we can get Mr. Bowman back on the line, we'll certainly do so, but I want people to know what's going on with Ms. Kobalak, and, these YouTube videos will shed the light as to partial the story. I would prefer Mr. Bowman, of course, to tell it, but nevertheless, these can be found at freedomfightersforamerica.com on the homepage under the Save Pat Kobalak Project, and so you'll be able to listen and watch these videos. They're very short in nature, but they do tell what happened to Ms. Kobalak. But in the interim, I will play those videos. And so you can listen to the audio as far as that's concerned. So that'll shed a little bit of introductory light onto the situation that's going on with Mr. Bowman and, of course, Pat Kobalak. It is a very horrific situation. where you are literally grabbed off the street and institutionalized. It's a very horrible thing when you're a normal individual with no problems and somebody points a finger and has you railroaded. So I'm going to play this first audio. Okay, so stand by here and we'll listen to that. Again, you're listening to Freedom Fighters for America World Radio. Says October 5th, 2008, Ms. Kobalak was transferred to the Shore Winds Nursing Home in Rochester, New York, which is statistically one of the worst nursing homes in the entire state of New York. According to New York State Department of Health, Shore Winds has had more complaints and code violations than almost any other nursing home in the state. Essentially, this is a report showing the findings of this nursing home where that Pat Kobalak was transferred to. And if you'd like, you can see that on freedomfightersforamerica.com, www.freedomfightersforamerica.com. Complaints and code violations have been filed against Shorewind Nursing Home. This is just to kind of show where she is. There's all different kinds of violations here: failing to accommodate the needs of residents, failing to provide appropriate care and services, failing to notify the Department of Health of an electrical shutdown after a fire ignited, failure to provide evidence of that fire mentioned above, failing to provide appropriate care to residents, complaints and code violations that have been filed against Shorewind. There's a bunch of violations here, ladies and gentlemen, that this person who was sent to this nursing home faced while there: failing to provide appropriate treatment, preventing pressure sores on residents. Sounds like hell. Failing to provide adequate care to residents requiring a feeding tube. Failure to ensure resident environment remain as free of accident hazards as possible. Failure to ensure that residents are free of any significant medication errors. All of these had multiple code violations. Failure to promote care for residents in a manner and in an environment that maintains or enhances each resident's dignity and respect in full recognition of his or her individuality. There's dozens of them here listed, dozens of violations. It's to the place where Pat Kobalak was initially railroaded to. Just goes on and on here. I can probably read this for the next 3 minutes. Since being admitted into Shorewind's nursing home, Ms. Kobalak had had all of her property taken. Staff at Shorewind's had banned her from seeing her fiancé, attempted to force her to take Risperdal, refusing to allow her to go outside, not allowing her to shower or dress herself. They confiscated her vitamins and supplements and are requiring her to wear an ankle monitor. Despite having never committed a crime, Patricia Kobalak has remained incarcerated for more than 5 months at this time and is receiving worse treatment. That was the initial video put out for Pat Kobalak, and I will put out it. I will get another one up for you to listen to here. That one really was just an informational audio. This next one, I believe, does have some sound to it. This is another individual attempting to rescue Pat Kobalak, okay?
It's something like an Amber Alert, but we're not going to be notifying the police because the police don't want to help us with the system's problems and all these kidnappings. So when I put a video up saying Pat Alert, I want you to go to my website and watch the video proof that the system has royally messed up yet again and kidnapped somebody for the financial gain of a judge or some form of abuse somewhere down the line. Take notes on the proof and bombard the heck out of that person's local media, and we're going to force the media to listen. We're going to force the media to do these stories, okay? And yes, we can do it. Everybody's participation is going to be needed here. That means that if you don't participate on some level with these Pat Alerts via a telephone call, an email, a smoke signal, or something, it's not going to work. However, if we all participate, the media should end up participating in the reform of social services. It's going to shine a light on there. Hey, Alex Jones is right. The best disinfectant is sunlight. You know, let the cockroaches scatter. That's my theory anyway. I mean, we've got judges sitting on the boards of social services contracted agencies and profiting like crazy. This is news, and we can make the media listen. If a news agency, I mean, think about it. If a news agency gets 1,000 calls in one day about someone's kid being removed for no good reason, trust me, they're going to cover it. Any and all Pat Alerts you people have should be sent to patalert@ymail.com. I made it very simple, okay? That's patalert@ymail.com. Please be sure to include your proof of innocence and the names of your local TV news stations and newspapers and all that. I want all that information. That way I can pass it on. I'm going to double check on a few facts and whatnot.
This is another advocate trying to get help for this lady and other people.
And I'm going to come up on YouTube declaring a Pat Alert and, you know, basic information about the case. About this case, and and a link to my website where the proof and documentation of wrongdoing that you give me is going to be posted, so the actual Pat Alert can't be removed from this account, because I had my last Pat Alert removed from this account. Apparently, a bunch of people called the news station and said, "Oh no, do this, you got to do this story." It was only like 150 people. Man, whoo! You know, somebody got mad and reported it as some sort of contract violation, terms of use violation or whatever. Anyway, on a side note, use the donation button on my website. You know, I do this for a living, guys. I don't have much else as far as income. I do this for a living. With that said, I'm going to move on with my first Pat Alert. Recently, I've been contacted by Mr. Tim Bowman with regards to a Miss Patricia Kobilac, who is being held against her will in Strong Behavioral Health Clinic in Rochester, New York. He was very worried about the level of care his fiancée is getting in Strong Behavioral Health Clinic. It's like a mental ward. Apparently, even the nurses believe that she should go home with Mr. Bowman, where she would have love, attention, and proper medical care. She has been previously diagnosed by Dr. Patel in Buffalo, New York, with hypothyroidism. It's a very serious medical condition that does need to be treated properly, otherwise she's going to exhibit signs of like dementia and whatnot. But she's not nuts. Her thyroid needs to be treated is all. Okay, and yes, she could die. This is a very, very serious condition. And this little old lady, you know, the whole story started with basically her brother, Miss Kobilak's brother, David Pierce, who's got a long and well-documented history of retaining power of attorney over incapacitated family members and extended family members for, like, their pensions and whatnot, which is what he's going after his sister for. He wants her pension, her land, her things like that, and he wants to call her crazy in order to get it. In fact, you know, when they called a court date, you know, after he got her to sign over power of attorney over finances to him, the judge said, well, why don't you take her into your home? And he says, well, I'm not taking her into my home. I'll take her money, but I won't take her. So, yeah, about that. By the way, I have spoken with her. There's no situation of abuse with her fiancé of 12 years, you know, none. There's no reason she shouldn't be home. This guy's fully capable. So this is a complicated situation. Mr. Bowman is hoping to see his fiancée returned home where she wants to be and have her real condition, hypothyroidism, treated before he loses her. It's really sad. She could die. So typically we all deal with advocacy for people dealing with children's services or whatnot, but this is a situation where a brother tried to get his elderly sister's pension and whatnot by using the system. And she ended up, now Catholic Social Services is her guardian, and she's been locked up in this hospital for over 100 days now, and she's not allowed to get up and exercise. There's no windows. You know, she's getting depressed. She's getting sick. They went through her panties. They went through her clothes. They went through everything. She's not allowed to see her fiancé in private. She's not allowed to do anything. She can't even eat good food. This poor little old lady, and it's all over her pension. Now Catholic Social Services can stuff her in a nursing home, and where she does not need to be. She has a normal life as long as she's treating her hypothyroidism, which she has a previous diagnosis. I've seen the paperwork. I'm going to go ahead and post everything on my website after I post this video. Their local newspaper is called the Democrat and Chronicle, and the phone number there is area code 585-258-9770. Go ahead and rewind that, and you're going to get the Democrat and Chronicle, 585-258-9770. And, say, hey, you need to get this lady out of that hospital. She's being held in Strong Behavioral Health Clinic at Strong Memorial, and she's been there over 100 days, and there's no need for this woman to be in the system. She's got a fiancé who loves her and is capable. He's been with her for over 12 years. Just because her family did not succeed in trying to steal her pension doesn't mean that now the system gets to steal her pension and the little land that she worked to get in her life. That's horrible. So people, pad alert. This is the first pad alert. Participate, or I don't want to hear any whining. Either you help us, or I don't see any reason to help you. So if you're subscribed to me and later you say, oh, this, that, and the other, I want you to do a pad alert, and I find out that you didn't participate in this and you knew about it, I'm not going to do your pad alert, okay? So participate, make this phone call. Let's see if we can bombard the Democrat and Chronicle in Rochester, New York, and force them to save Pat, okay?
Okay, well, that was well said by another advocate out there. I will play another tape for you regarding this situation of Pat Kovalak. It is a horrible situation. I can relate to it as well. I happen to be a person who also had a very similar incident happen to me, so I can tell you being a normal person and have this happen is a terrible thing to do. This is a talk between the nurse and Pat and Mr. Bowman.
Insurance and his life. We're all very upset about it because she hasn't had this place in cost 8 9 days. We're hearing through the grapevine that a placement is supposed to be coming in the hospital. Get her heck out of here. And then once she gets out of here, she'll have experience more.
Bear with me 1 second here. So very hard to hear audio, okay? I think he was recording this on a tape recorder, so we'll try to listen to some more of this. Again, you're listening to Freedom Fighters for America World Radio. We are attempting to get this audio back. It's a discussion between the medical nurse and... hold on 1 second. Fortunately, Mr. Bowman, I don't know, he's not on the call now. And I'm going to see if we can, I'm going to try to call back. I'm going to try to get him on the telephone and conference this call. Hopefully we can save the interview with Mr. Bowman. It is a difficult situation here right now to try to get him back on the line, but we will try. And in the interim of that, I'll just play a little bit of music and apologize for the situation that we have, but it's not out of the realm here. We usually run into this kind of problem sooner or later, so I thank you for your indulgence, and again. Please stand by. We're having a little bit of difficulty with this interview.
We don't have no plastic LA friends. Ain't on the edge of no popular trend. Ain't never seen the inside of that magazine GQ. We don't care if you're a lawyer or a Texas old man, or some waitress busting ass at some liquor stand. If you got soul, we hang out with people just like you. My hair's turning white, my neck's always been red, my collar's still blue. We've always been here, just trying to sing the truth to you. Yes, you could say we've always been red, white, and blue. Domestic brew. If you want to know where I've been, look at mine. Yeah, I flew by the White House, spent some time in jail. Mama cried, but she still wouldn't pay my bill. I ain't been no angel, but even God, he understands. Yeah. But my hair's turning white. My neck's always been red.
There's always this kind of... Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue the interview momentarily. Please stand by. Waiting. I see you got your hand up on there. Hold on, I'm going to pick up on the other line, okay? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the delay. Mr. Tim Bowman is back on the phone.
I'm here.
Tim?
I'm here.
Okay, welcome back. We're going into the twilight zone here today.
Yeah, everything was blasted off of me, so I had to reboot everything. And
yeah.
So.
Well, let's start. Let's pick it up where we left off. Pat was a person who was part of the Manhattan Project. She had volunteered, or she was put in at 6 months old into the Manhattan Project?
Well, the story I have is the family had a history of thyroid issues, and at that time in the late 40s, early 50s, that was one of the new exciting experimental treatments that was done. And so some lucky winners got to be radiated. And they tried prior to this, 3 years or 2 years prior to them, Pat's family getting involved in doing this. The Strong Memorial Hospital were trying to get her back involved in studies. They want to do follow-up studies on her for her thymus, I guess.
I see. So they did something to her sinuses as well? What did they do you know?
Her thymus, it's a thyroid gland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they radiate it.
Right, so she's been radiated. She was put into this program by her family initially at the age of 6 months old. And Strong was involved in this from the very beginning. Which
would have tied into the state of New York, because that's tied in with the University of Rochester.
Right. So she was already a subject target of these individuals before her family made claims against her. Let's pick it up from there. Pat was at work. What happened next?
Well, that morning when she went to work, I told her, I think something's going on with your family. They were so funny yesterday. Be careful. So she went to work, and don't you know, her brother called her boss, I guess, prior that morning and arranged to come and pick her up. So I think some kind of in conjunction with the report or of the police report they filed previous day before. I think it was some kind of an unofficial mental health arrest.
Mm-hmm. Now, what did they actually say in that report that her brother filed?
It's under seal. I'm not allowed to actually get a copy of it and defend myself against her to defend ourselves against any of the accusations in there.
So they've made accusations against her and you, right? And they've never even told you what the actual charges were? No,
and at one point the local news was investigating this, and she said that she had gotten a copy of it. But from what I can determine, they labeled Pat crazy because she had mentioned the spraying of the point chemtrails, I guess, the pollution from that, and she also mentioned down in Mexico, a lot of diplomats were getting microchipped, and she brought that up to her brother, which is a diplomat, and they twisted that story into remote-controlled chips and people spraying planes and killing us, and so they twisted everything around it. It really wasn't, it took a grain of truth and weaved
So she was being set up by the brother, obviously.
Yeah.
He had connections. He was a diplomat, so he knew people of influence and power to make this all happen.
So yes, and then that's why he did the dirty deed and showed up at her job with his wife. Mm-hmm. And at that point, they said, let's go to lunch around the corner, which is a lot of restaurants. They got her out of the building and put her into his car, the diplomat's car. His wife took the wheel of the diplomat's car there, and he took the wheel of my vehicle, which Pat drove to work, and took my truck and dropped it off in front of the house. So that just shows me they intended that she wasn't coming home at that point. And I usually talk to Pat at lunch and say, hi, how are you, and see what she was doing, tell her I love her and all that. And I called her, and she wasn't there, and her boss said she took a half a day off. I called her brother, and he said that she is in a safe place, which I don't know. At that time, I don't know what he was talking about. She's in a safe place. And I didn't know that that was when I was turned into this demonic entity, I guess, this abusing person. And and I will preface, me and Pat have been together for over 10 years, never had fights, just little tiny. I mean, it's very. That's why I love her. We've never had there was never many harsh words. Every day was I love you in the morning and I love you at night for all that time. It's the family just resented our relationship. Basically, is what I think it was, because she started bringing up situations in the past that had troubled her for many years that she held in. That happened while she was with this family when she was 6 years old. She was molested and repeatedly molested by a foster child that the mother had brought into the house. And so she had brought this up, and they really didn't react properly. They got very upset and criticized her and completely broke off contact with us for almost a year and a half, almost 2 years prior to them coming and getting her.
Right.
So and at that point, Pat was just, she was hurt by, telling somebody this personal information, her own family, they'd be rejected over it, and it was kind of incredible. So she was very hurt and just wanted to deal with her illness, because that was happening at the same time. And this whole time, Mr. Zucker, the family never inquired, how do you feel? How, anything as far as how we were feeling or how we were. It was pretty much everything centered around their activities and their lives, and we just weren't rich people like them. We're just kind of average people. But the way I look at it, we may be poor, but we didn't have any loans. We didn't have credit or card loans or anything like that. We didn't have credit cards. We lived a simple life, and we were very happy. And so I think they had enough of it. And at the picnic, one thing that really I noticed really funny is when the diplomat was there, I always would bring him news articles just to see what his opinion was, and I never would get a response to anything. So this time I brought a picture of the current Pope Ratzinger with Joseph Goebbels and Mengele, the Dr. Mengele, and the Catholic Church Heiling Hitler. And I mentioned to the diplomat, I said, I think this ties in with the Federal Reserve, Ted. You know, that something's going on with the banks and all that. And this was before the collapse happened with the banking. And he just looked at me and walked away, and I thought that was very strange. But it wasn't uncommon for him to be like that. So, you know, we left, and that's when they decided they had enough. They went and filed a bogus report, came and executed the kidnapping. I actually interrupted the kidnapping by going to the police because I immediately knew something wasn't right. Mm-hmm. And they recruited the police actually abetting the kidnapping, and the police started questioning me if I had firearms, and I also became a suspect. Mm-hmm. We found out later on Pat actually did tell the police that she was being kidnapped and she didn't want this to happen. And while she was in her brother's custody, they all kind of like surrounded her and intimidated her, and nobody listened to her as usual. So she kind of went into a form of shock. She needed help, and the police wouldn't help her. Her family wouldn't help her. So she was traumatized.
She was traumatized by her problem, her physical ailment, and then of course now she has this conspiring going on by her brother. So obviously there were problems in their relationship way before. She was a research subject given over at the age of 6 months old by her family to Strong, which is ironic considering that's where she was railroaded to, the second place that she went to, and is still there, correct?
And yeah, in fact, Strong Hospital still has her because the nursing home that she's only 57 years old. Mm-hmm. The nursing home that the Guardian placed her in, she was not supposed to be placed in any, institutionalized whatsoever. But the Guardian took it on herself to put her into this nursing home, which the owner of the nursing home is the director of Strong Memorial Hospital, and he's also on the board of directors for public health and safety for the New York State Department of Health.
Mm-hmm. So I find it ironic that now she's back into the same hands of the people who initially had her at the age of 6 months old. So do you think at this point, because we're going to continue the story from where it leaves off, but do you think that they are doing more research and development on your fiancée now?
At this point, I have no doubt, because when Pat left here in August 3rd, the only medication she was receiving at that point was a blood pressure medication. The other stuff was all supplements prescribed by her physician, and she was doing really good. She just started treatment a week and a half.
Okay. Your phone's being hit again. You're breaking up on the call. So she's let's see if we can take it off now. She was kidnapped from her job by her brother, and she was taken over to this nursing home. That's where she started out, correct?
She was taken to it was the acute psychiatric clinic in Rochester, New York, where she was held for 4 months.
Okay, so she was taken to a clinic in Rochester and held for 4 months.
And state law really is only 72 hours to hold somebody. But see, what they did is Pat was trying to, she wanted to file a complaint for kidnapping against her family. Mm-hmm. And the doctor that was treating her, coincidentally enough, was ex-Army intelligence officer. So he drugged her up immediately, got her so drugged up she was very, couldn't focus at all with these heavy-duty psychiatric drugs, and within 24 hours after drugging her, they said she's incompetent, she's unable to take care of herself, she needs a guardian. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that was it. That was it in the court. No due process. She wasn't allowed to bring witnesses. She requested a trial by jury. No trial by jury. In fact, the judge had determined she needed a guardian before any evidence was presented at any court. Mm-hmm. So and they did do a court hearing. It was like a sham kind of a hearing. And when I was attending the hearing, it was a fiduciary, and I wasn't allowed to hear any testimony against me or defend myself against any of the accusations, whatever they were saying. And I still don't know to this day what was on those transcripts because the court won't release the transcripts, nor will they release the full police report.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not even allowed due process. So obviously they got something to hide if they don't want the evidence to come out. But I guess my point was she was not supposed to be placed in a nursing home, and at that hearing she was supposed to have fiduciary oversight over her finances. And at that point, I was very naive of what was going on, and they were saying if you go along with things, she'll be home in 6 months. So I tried to be accommodating as best as I could, but she didn't really have any process whatsoever. It was very much a sham. And her brother at the hearing said he'd rather see her locked up than to go home with me. So, and this is a man that, like that video said, he has power of attorney over 4 other people. He immediately got control of her checkbook. I don't know why he would need that. I don't know what the point was to get control of her finances immediately. You would think they would be more concerned about her health condition at first. But, see, it was a contrived situation. So on August 3rd, she went to work. Let's go to lunch by the brothers. Then it turned into called in a kidnapping. Then the story changed to she wants to leave the house. She's moving out on him. She had nowhere to go. The family didn't offer to take her in, so it's a bold story. We had a good relationship. So then the main objective was to get her to the hospital. So by the end of the day, they had called an ambulance against her will, and they took her to the hospital. That's when they admitted her and got the drugs in her, and since then she's been basically confined, isolated. Her mail's gone through. If she even gets any mail, her family does not go.
Tim, let me stop you here because your phone's breaking up and it's pretty much inaudible. But basically, you have a friend here who's on the chat, and he's helping me out with some of the story as well. She started out at the Strong Behavioral Health Clinic mental ward, and after 4 months, she was moved to Shore Winds Nursing Home on December 4th, right, in 2008?
Yeah.
Okay. Her family has a history of institutionalizing other family members?
But yes, there was
I really can't hear you. Her brother, the diplomat, has done this to other people?
I don't know.
You're not sure?
Not sure, no.
Well, he obviously, said that he'll take her money, but she doesn't want her. When the judge said, well, why don't, if you don't trust her to Mr. Bowman, why don't you take her because you're initiating the action? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I was told. The witness at the hearing, they prevented me from even defending.
So, moving along with this story now, has she ever had any representation at all? Who's been representing her? Her guardian, the association that has guardianship? What is that? The Christian Association that has guardian? Who is the guardian?
The state-appointed mental hygiene legal service. The guardian is Catholic Charities.
Mm-hmm. So it's a State Department of Mental Hygiene that has this through the guardianship. I wish I could hear you because this line, your line is just awful. I can't even hear what you're saying to me. So I'm trying to make do. If you want to try to call back in again, I'll wait.
I'll call right back.
Okay. It's Catholic Family Services that has this. Thank you. Just waiting for Mr. Bowman to call back in again. Obviously, he's having interference on his phone. I don't know if that's arranged by the powers that be out there. So this interview is not conducted, smoothly. But whatever the case, we will continue this. So please stand by, ladies and gentlemen. This is something that goes on with many people. Pat Kobolak has it very bad. Okay, Mr. Bowman's back on. 1 second, Tim. Let me see if I can get you off mute. Tim?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. Much better now.
Oh, good.
So Catholic Family Services is the guardian at this particular point.
Yes, the corporation, nonprofit corporation, was appointed over her life. Instead of a human being or somebody that lost her, they appointed a corporation.
Tell me what you've been doing, and tell me some of the incidents that have occurred when you went to visit her. Let's start off with Strong, where she initially was.
I originally was allowed to see her, and I would cook her organic food and fresh vegetables whenever I had a chance to go up there. And at one point, after about 20 days, I had brought her some fresh organic salad with some sea salt, unrefined sea salt. And the staff found out about the sea salt, and they actually came into her room in the morning. It was about 6 employees, and they started turning her bed upside down and in her drawers and her underwear, and they confiscated the sea salt, and she called very upset. And it's just, they've been dehumanizing this woman ever since day one. I mean, it's just disgusting that after August 4th, she became no choice. She has no choice in what she wants to do at all. Her choice is to look forward to dying. Really, it's the only thing right now is she's not allowed to go outside. She's not allowed to leave the facility unless it's one of the family.
Well, this is Shore Winds you're referring to right now, right?
That's what's that? I'm sorry.
This is the Shore Winds nursing home you're referring to right now, right?
Oh yes, this place is.
Okay, let's go back to Strong Behavioral. Okay, after she was taken in and brought in there, you obviously went there. Okay, so what happened at your first visit?
I tried actually, the first time I went there, I tried to give them her medical records, and they immediately called security and had me ushered out of the facility.
You mean to tell me they weren't even interested in her medical records or interested in her enough to receive medical records pertaining to any past things?
They took them, but they didn't seem, they got very upset because I was trying to, tell them, you need to take care of her thyroid condition. She just started medical treatment. She was being denied all her medications and supplements, which are supplements basically is what it was.
So at this point, when you went in there and you tried to, assist her and assist the people who were allegedly taking care of her, they weren't looking for that. They were not looking for any type of medical information which would help her situation.
No, in fact, a nurse came forward, that recording you were trying to play. She said that, you're the one that brings her the flowers and the food and the nice clothes to wear and stuff, and her family doesn't care at all about her. They should butt out. And that she said that this is torture. She equated Pat's treatment as to torture and inhumane, because really, Pat has maybe been outside maybe a half a dozen times in the last 2.5 years right now, 1,000 days.
What is she diagnosed with? What is their diagnosis to keep her there that long?
They initially said she had dementia, which can be drug-induced, but with a thyroid condition like she's doing, it will mimic a slowness of speech and all that. And she had testing done 1.5 years prior to that to rule out all that stuff. It was that she did not have dementia, and in fact, it is related to the family. She had an anxiety disorder that was stemming from the family, the doctor noted in the records.
Right.
So there is a historical documentation that the family was, quote, cold and intolerant as she was growing up. Weren't very close.
So she had a very tough upbringing, and
very
now
corporate.
she's not being treated for her actual medical condition, which in fact is mimicking the type of dementia that they're trying to bring out. That is her problem. So actually, they're initiating that problem by not helping.
There's a book by Dr. Grace Jackson that just come out, and it's Induced Dementia. It's a very informative book, and they do it through medication. It's a new form of lobotomy. In the 50s, they would do the ice pick. Now, in the new millennium, the easiest, most cowardly way is through the drugs, the use of drugs that'll fry your frontal lobe, burn up, and screw up your functioning really good. Shut down your
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I know, as being a person who was in a very similar situation, they take the opportunity after they diagnose someone and diagnose them falsely, okay, that in order to discredit the victim. And then they think that they can get away with doing whatever they want to the victim, and if the victim complains, no one will believe them because of the diagnosis.
That's right. So, and see, if they neutralize her with dementia, now you have no witness to a crime. Oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Right.
Thus kidnapping her.
Exactly. So you went there the first time. You brought the medical records. Did you bring her the food and the sea salt at the same time, or was that a different occasion?
It was at different times because I would go up there at least 2 or 3 times a week initially.
Mm-hmm. And what transpired on those visits? You were refused. They refused to take the medical background for Pat. You went there with food and sea salt. What did you just bring it into the room and they didn't know about it? Is that what happened?
Well, we weren't allowed to be private. We had to sit out in the open. Mm-hmm. We weren't allowed to, sit in her room privately.
I see. So when you brought her nutrition and the right foods that she would, feel better with, they turned around and said, did they allow her to have even that meal, or did they take everything away?
No, they took all that. And even now, if they catch her with any supplements or vitamins, then they will take it. Mm-hmm. While she was at Shorelands, I sent her a little big Berkey water filter so she could at least have clean water because fluoride and chlorine will affect the thyroid. Mm-hmm. And they took that. She's not even allowed to have clean water.
So
they're doing everything to euthanize her. I think it's very similar to what they do in Europe with the dementia. They figure they're useless to society, and it's a burden, too much of a financial burden, and you're doing them a favor the way they spin it. And the treatment is really, like with Pat, I asked her, she managed to sneak a call to me yesterday, and I go, Pat, are you on a lot of drugs? And she goes, oh, yeah. And I go, how many do you think? And she goes, maybe 9 or 10. So, and this was a woman that wasn't taking any medication. So I'm not sure what kind of drugs they're even giving her. There's a lot of drugs to be given somebody every day.
Well, her brother must have a lot of power and influence to have her exterminated here, to have her railroaded, to have her placed in a position like that, and of course not to have any kind of medical assistance with her actual medical need. And, of course, now they're not looking after her nutrition, and they're literally torturing her by not providing her needs, by not allowing her to be a human being in a place that she doesn't belong to. And you've said that you spoke to a nurse who said that it was a form of torture in there. And is this nurse, well, you don't have to give any names of this person, obviously, but do you think that this person would be willing to become a witness in any type of court case that would transpire?
I think possibly. She was so concerned for Pat's welfare, she wrote a letter to her supervisor and at the chance of losing her job because she was so concerned.
Mm-hmm. Is this person still working there?
She was the head nurse over there. She was the head nurse, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And these people know this. See, this stuff was on YouTube, and they found this stuff, and they used it against me. Like I'm posting all this stuff on YouTube, and boy, I'm a bad person, and I'm not giving any opinions. It's just documentation.
Yeah, well, obviously the criminals don't want the information out there because when you shine the light on the criminals, they do become involved in a nature that they don't want to be involved in. So let's get back to this a little bit more here because this really needs to be discussed in depth. Now, you visited her, and has any other people been visiting her subsequently during the course of this?
Yes, I have a friend, Nick, that's been going to manage to he's actually had access to her while she's been at Strong until they caught on to him visiting, but mm-hmm. He was able to get up there, and we recorded some video and audio of her and the deterioration of her physical condition and the rashes. She's had nothing but continued rashes, and which is a sign of toxicity. And so, they're not treating her; it's the drugs they're giving her. She has allergic history of having problems with these drugs 10, 15 years ago, and she stated in a living will she does not want these drugs, and much of her medical documentation will show she was opposed to these drugs, and they do not care. You figure if she is on 10 drugs, that's another thing where you can look at it, the financial aspects, because if they got her on that many drugs, that's probably $5,000-$10,000 a month insurance-wise that somebody's making money off of. The doctors might be getting kickbacks. Who knows?
Yeah. Now, Nick is on the chat, and he says that you actually have protested outside the facility and scared the staff half to death. Is that true?
Yes, we did on Easter. We went out with a few people, and we're standing out in front trying to bring awareness to the situation. And the police were there within, I'd say less than 5 minutes. And the staff were coming out, and oh my gosh, they were backing up their cars like we were going to attack them or something. It just was incredible.
Well, what happened during this?
That's what they do. They're slip and fall artists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, did you have signs out there, or were you chanting?
Do not exterminate Patricia Kobielak, and we were telling people as they were coming in what they were asking, inquiring what was going on, and we were telling them, and every person unequivocally was shocked to hear this was going on.
Was this at Strong or Shore Winds?
Shore Winds Nursing Home.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I will preface, Chris, that all her medical treatment has been by doctors that are solely affiliated with Strong Memorial Hospital. She's not allowed to see her own physician anymore. It's controlled, their doctors.
Well, I do know that some hospitals do have policies of having outside doctors come in. That may be for insurance reasons, or it may be for this cover-up that's going on with her. That I do not know, but I have heard in the past that certain hospitals won't allow doctors that are not on staff to be involved in the patient's case. I have heard that. Now, if anybody wants to go to Pat's website, okay, they made up a website for her, and you can go to freedomfightersforamerica.com on the home page. It's under Save Pat Kobielak, right on the front page there, okay? And all of this information will be listed there. It has the YouTube videos on there, and it has the website, which is Save Pat Kobielak, KOBYLAK.blogspot.com. So you can see this information, and I hope that you use this information, and bloggers out there who will be listening to this now or, in the future, please blog out this information to every contact that you have, because this information needs to go out. People need to understand that this is a massive problem, not only, with Pat, and her situation is dire because she is in there. She is in the hands of these criminals, and they can have their way to do anything that they want to her, and that includes murder. And if they're not taking care of her at this particular point, that's what the outcome will be. So the urgency for the situation that Pat is in is very urgent. So I do ask anyone who listens to the show and who's listening to the show right now to become involved in this, because this could be you. This could be anyone. I'll tell you right now, and I've said it again, this was me, okay? I've been in this position. I know what it is. I managed to be in for 60 days, and they biomedically implanted me, and now they're using that research and development here on me right now, 8 years later. So I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that this does happen to people, and there's many, many people involved. But I want to go back to Pat's story now with Tim. Now, she was in Strong for 4 months, and so the reasoning after 4 months, why did they want to transfer her over to Shore Winds Nursing Home?
Well, from what I can determine at the court, she was supposed to be let free, and they said if you go along with things, Tim, she'll be back home in 6 months. Mm-hmm. And so I was trying to be accommodating, and she was supposed to go into an assisted living facility. Now, she's only 57 years old, was working a full-time job. She definitely doesn't need assistance at all. She took care of cats, did laundry, rode a bike, drove to work. I mean, she just had problems with her speech. Well, she was placed in the Shore Winds. The guardian stated that she should not be in there, but due to Medicaid and Medicare, that was the only place that would take her, which was a bogus. And she didn't understand the laws. So there was something funny going on right from the beginning. So the guardian admitted she should not be in a acute nursing facility, skilled nursing care facility. So there she remains now for over 2.5 years, pretty much now. And nobody will answer. I have approached the Guardian just got a response from a letter that I wrote. It's basically saying she does not want these drugs. She's not being treated. Went down the whole litany of what they're doing to her. And the person wouldn't write back, the Guardian, but they got the lawyer for the Catholic Charities to write back, and he didn't answer anything. He basically said this gobbledygook about HIPAA laws and all this and that, and I have enough documentation to show that I have permission to access all her records and all that, but I've just been cut out of the loop. They don't acknowledge me at all. I've become this kind of like this boyfriend type of a person. Now, this is a woman that I've been with for 10 years. I paid the rent and all the expenses for all those years because Pat was in a financial distress, and I really thought it was important to clean up her past credit and all that, and so she took care of all that, and I provided for her like a husband, and I actually gave her, when I became ill, I gave her 100 acres of land, and my other vehicles and everything was in her name in case I had died, so she would have been taken care of, and the family also found out about that, so they saw 100 acres of land, property, and what a better way to destroy a relationship to, lock her up and take everything they own.
Yeah. So again, this is a situation where it was induced by the family, and probably with the help, of course, Strong, because of the fact that she was in their hands as a research and development person before any of this transpired. So
right.
They may have wanted to do follow-up work and additional research and development on her. And
or she may be a liability, because if she does have a screwed-up thyroid and they had thyroid radiation, maybe they thought of a liability, and it's easier just to...
Well, here you bring up a very interesting point. You're absolutely right. In order to cover up the crimes that were done years ago, it would be necessary for them to get a hold of her again. And now it was a perfect setup where this would happen. Now the family would get paid off, and she would wind up there, and Strong wouldn't be liable for any type of liability that happened, if she was considered to be a whistleblower. Okay, this is really
to the state, which could go back to because that's the University of Rochester, which is tied to Strong, which is the state of New York, and also she was a victim of a state of New York foster child too. There could have been potential litigation they felt with that situation too, which there wasn't going to be, but she was just not a very, not a positive towards the state too much.
Okay, now you and Nick obviously have been doing some advocacy work. There was a lady that I played a video on that claimed pad alerts. Who was she involved?
That was a woman, I believe, Patience Poet, she's a journalist out west. And I haven't had much contact with her. She kind of dropped off the map, so I'm not sure what. I know she still advocates for CPS victims and stuff like that. She's that's her forte.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who are victims of CPS, and that's how I became a target, which is ironic. But I find this situation here very critical. So we'll go into this a little bit more now. So you're at Strong. How many times did you visit there? Now you had a protest out there. The police came. They made you leave. What other incidents have taken place upon your visits to these places?
At Shorewinds, at least, I was allowed to visit her 2 times, and I was smart enough and had advice to wear a hidden camera. And so that the last time I saw Pat, I filmed the whole incident, and basically they were waiting outside the room, and I said, Pat, I don't know if they're going to treat you for your health, your thyroid. I don't think they care. And they were outside listening, and it was already pre-organized because there was like 6 administrators outside the door at that point. So I think they're kind of like, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. It was just no matter what I had done or didn't do, they were going to say that I did something. So I was escorted out, because I was upsetting her supposedly, as they grabbed her and pushed her out of the room and grabbed me, and escorted me out of the building.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, Chris, in the video, I go, "Are you trying to hurt this woman?" And the one woman actually, I don't know if she misunderstood me or whatever, but she said, "Yes, we are." And I didn't notice that when it happened, but in review of the tape, I noticed that she had said, "Yes, we are trying to hurt her." So I don't know if that was a Freudian slip or what, but she's in a room with 3 other women that scream and yell. She's got an ankle bracelet on, a radio frequency bracelet on. She's not allowed to have free will and do what the other patients are allowed to do and go to certain activities and stuff. They're actually using stress to kill her, I believe, with the drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Because
yeah, sure, they would continue not only to violate her physically, but to violate her emotionally. But I have a guest here that asks a question, and I think if they were here a little bit earlier, they would understand what the answer would be. But it is a good question. And did Pat have, what kind of relationship did Pat have with her brother?
I know when she was younger, her brother, the one that did this, they were kind of close. They used to go square dancing and stuff like that, and then I guess that relationship faded away. She got married in the 70s and moved out to California with her husband, and he went to Vietnam and came back kind of damaged from the Agent Orange, and that marriage didn't last long because he was an alcoholic, and but so the family kind of faded away. They never really offered Pat support when she was an adult with children whatsoever. I've never noticed it. Mm-hmm. It was very dry.
She has children?
Pat has 2 children, believe it or not. One is, as soon as he graduated high school, he moved over to the communist bloc of the Czech Republic there. And the other one, the daughter, she graduated top of her class, and she presently works at an abortion clinic down in Philadelphia.
Oh, hold on a second now. Pat had 2 children.
Yes.
Yes. One is in the communist bloc.
Yes.
What made her son go to a communist bloc country?
Because his father was from the Czech Republic.
Okay. So he was from the Czech Republic, but he served in the American military in Vietnam?
No, that was her first husband. Her son. It's her son right now that when he graduated high school, he moved over to the Czech Republic.
I see. Okay, so he felt the need to go over there.
Yeah, he didn't like America too much. He wanted to get out of here right from the get-go.
And so her daughter works in an abortion clinic.
She's an accounts clerk in an abortion facility, yeah.
Okay, and I'm wondering what this type of activity has done to an unstable family that Pat had. You think that would have anything to do with the resentments towards Pat?
Boy, I don't know. That's something that Pat would have. No, there never was a open resentment. It was very protocol. Hi, how are you? But there was never a very limited intimacy in that family whatsoever. It was very, like I used to say, a church social type of family. They never talk about anything real. It was always just superficial stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, her son's father was from the Czech Republic?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And he wasn't living there at the time. The son just decided to uproot and go over there, and he was teaching English in one of the universities.
I'm just trying to get a whole idea of a picture here. So, I will be on a fishing expedition. This is what I do very well, is fish. So just bear with that. But, so I'm trying to get people to understand the whole relationship between Pat, her brother, her family, and everything that's involved. Now, Nick brought up a very good point, that this is obviously something higher than, there's more than meets the eye here, okay? She was a research and development subject at the age of 6 months old. She was railroaded back to the same place where the research and development were done, possibly by some of the same doctors that were involved. She was diagnosed. She was held over for way over the length of time that a normal person would be diagnosed and released. And further, is being maltreated in this place. So obviously there is something behind all of it. Now you have taken this, you've gone legal with this, right? You've filed lawsuits, or you've filed documentation in order to get, have her retrieved from this situation.
Well, since this has started, I've retained a private investigator, which soaked me for almost $20,000, which really drained me pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I've spent another upwards of $15,000 on attorneys,
mm-hmm.
and not one time have I been able to get this into court. They take the money and then they just don't do anything, and it's been a repeated pattern over and over. So at this point, what I've done is research the law enough to where I filed a federal lawsuit against the brothers for fraud, or the brother,
mm-hmm.
the social worker for the New York State Department of Health, and the guardian, and New York State itself.
Right. Now, he filed the false statement because she was gainfully employed. Making a statement that she was unstable and unable to take care of herself, really didn't have much, there, because she was in fact taking care of herself and actually gainfully employed. So,
right, that's right.
The initial accusation was bogus from the very beginning, and the cover-up just continued and snowballed right along here. This is what I see.
So,
and,
if you look at this. Prior to this August 4th, Pat was an environmentally sensitive person, was going to an environmental specialist, finally got diagnosed with all her things. She was competent enough to call up neurologist and biodentist to start getting the treatment and getting all this. She had appointments at the environmental occupational clinic in Syracuse, New York. So she was very competent. She was working. She took care of everything. Her only thing was she could not verbalize properly, and the family took that as they were notified of her medical condition about a week before they took her, and that was actually after a meeting where I don't know why they did this. They invited Pat, and it was basically a meeting that the mother's finances had run dry in the nursing home, and she was out of money. But when they had dropped her off, I had notified them that people need to call her a little bit more and let her know you care about her. She's sick. She doesn't feel good. And according to the brother, later on in a conversation with an investigator, he told the investigator that was a challenge, and that's why they did what they did, because I had challenged them, because I had told them to care about their sister. So
you're a witness. You're a witness to the crimes that are taking place, and there are other people here that are witnesses to these criminals. That are committing these illegal activities upon Pat. Now, you've said that you have films and audio recordings. You have an audio recording that I've heard from a nurse who said that this is torture, that she would do much better with you. I'm not going to ask you for every piece of information, and I don't want you to provide that, because sooner or later this will come to a head. But what other types of things that you can talk about? What type of information do you have that also would validate your claims about what's going on there?
Well, I have the attorney, her first court-appointed attorney, stating that she didn't need a guardian, in his opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the same breath, he said the court has decided to appoint a guardian before the court even had its hearing. So that's, and he...
So it was already a predetermined case before it even came to determination.
Right. They just basically, I think what had happened is that, like a CIA type of a scenario where they have a Hegelian dialectic type of a situation. They have a problem. They don't like us together. Pat's starting to speak up for herself, asserting herself a little bit more. Mm-hmm. They needed to split us up, so that was their problem. They wanted to break us up. So then they came up with this bogus, she was in threat and she was in danger and blah, 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 blah. And that didn't work. Then they finally got back control of her, and then it turned into she was incompetent and she didn't know what she was doing. And so it just morphed to one lie after another.
Do you think it was because of you that they went to all this trouble to have her railroaded? I don't know. I wouldn't know if that was the case or not. You would know better than I, but it doesn't sound like it.
Well, I've known the people 10 years. I shot weddings for them when their kids got married. I did let them borrow antiques for school plays. I was very much trying to be friends to these people, and they've never offered us any help or anything like that. But in all the years that I've known them, there was never one time where there was ever harsh words or an argument or anything ever. They never, and in fact, they never, you would think if a family had true concerns about this and what they were saying was true, they would call and try to find out what was going on. And at no time did they ever say, Tim, we're concerned about Pat, or this is what we think, or whatever. And I heard later on from one of the brothers, and when he was talking to the accountant, he said that the mother had heard on an Oprah show about abusive husbands or something, and that they thought that Pat might have been in an abusive situation from a TV show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're not
and it really wasn't that at all. It was Pat had broke off contact with them because she was hurt. They didn't want to listen to her about what was happening to her. They never really had any respect for Pat.
Mm-hmm. Let's get this straight now. David Pierce is the accountant. Okay, he's the second brother involved in this situation.
Right. He was the one that's been the most violent that I can determine, because he's always kind of a quiet man, but once this had happened, it was like I've seen him scream. He's used 4-letter words at me, and after the hearing, I happened to run into him outside the court when I was in my car, and he was at the corner. And I said, you violated Title 18, 242. You broke the law. He screamed out. It echoed through the city, basically. He said, F you, and he just flipped out. And I'm like, I also heard at the court he flipped out, too, that he'd rather see her locked up and stay there to rot than to go home with me.
Have you ever had problems with him before all this took place?
Never had an argument with him at all. You know what we did do, though? We gave them, Pat gave them videos in the past. Mm-hmm. One of them was Endgame by Alex Jones, and another one was Freedom to Fascism, about the Federal Reserve. And that he was an accountant, so by trade. So I think he didn't like hearing how the Federal Reserve was a bogus, thing. Yeah. So I think too. Also, we found out later on he was the program manager for 911, continuity of government, all that crap. And I think with those people, they trained them on terrorism, and I think they actually brainwashed into some, so to speak, that the brother thought we were some kind of a threat because we talked about constitutional rights, and we weren't too keen on abortion. We thought there were other alternatives and stuff like that. So we were just kind of like old-fashioned Americans as far as I understand it, and we were just, he just viewed us as a threat.
Now her other brother, Theodore Pierce, is a diplomat. Where is he a diplomat to?
He's been several places. When I first met Ted, he was in Papua New Guinea, and then he went to Botswana, and then his last mission that I'm aware of was in Ireland. And as you could see, Ireland's economy went to crap now, and Ted's job with the State Department is Economic Political Deputy Chief, which I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds like he's a banker or some kind of a political financer or something like that.
Okay.
I think he's basically a political hitman, personally. It's my personal opinion.
Now, a good question came up. Do you think she's been monitored, throughout the years since her release from the Manhattan Project?
That's a good question, because I know in 2000 she was having hot flashes really bad, and her doctor, which was a strong affiliated doctor, and I noticed in the medical records they always brought up she was a radiation child. For some reason, they made a point of putting it in the medical records.
Well, perhaps they were continuing radiation treatment with the new microwave technology that they have out there targeting people. Who knows?
Well, she did have the problem with these flashes, and so this other strong doctor decided that she needed to have her tubes tied, something like that, which is very common for people with thyroid, the radiation. They like to look at your organs and stuff, your liver and your kidneys and the reproductive stuff. So I don't know if that's tied in, but she never really had I don't think it was very necessary. She was just chemically sensitive person, and it was the drugs that this doctor was giving her was causing all the side effects and creating more business for the doctors, basically, is what it was.
Now, let me ask you something, because Nick says that Strong Hospital, the place that did the experimentation initially, contacted her a year and a half to 2 years before her kidnapping. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I had her letters from them, and it's basically from a doctor over there, and they were very strangely, like, we just want to do a follow-up study, and you were an experiment in the 50s, and they make it sound very sterile, but you can read between the lines, and they want to get her involved back in experimenting with her, I believe.
Well, I think that's very conclusive as to motivation here about what's going on, to be quite honest with you. I mean, here's a place that experimented on her. Now they have requests for her presence to continue the experimentation?
That's good, and that's what makes it kind of funny, because the hospital is a private facility, but the owner is affiliated with the Strong Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
The nursing home.
So it is very likely that they were monitoring her all along since the release of, they wanted to observe her even after the release from, the research and development they did to her when she was very young.
I know that in the past that they did get a hold of a lot of these people, and they wanted to look at their livers and their kidneys, and they basically want to do autopsies on them to see the effects of the long-term radiation on them.
I see. Have you ever noticed anyone following her in your presence? That you have people observing her that you noticed or anything like that?
Not that I can recall, Chris, no.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'm just curious because, some of these people are, when they do things like this to a person, they're afraid to let go because it's possible that the victim will become a whistleblower. Very much so, and I'm telling you this out of first-hand knowledge myself here.
It could be.
Mm-hmm.
It's ironic. The family, the brother's a diplomat, the other brother works for 911. Mm-hmm. The other mother was certified by the state as a social worker for foster children. His one wife works for the Department of Motor Vehicles, which is a state department agency, and the other sibling, she's a teacher, which works for the New York State Department of Education.
Mm-hmm.
And these are basically all the people that have gave the negative testimony on Pat. All people that work for the state.
Every one of them involved is either affiliated with the union or affiliated with this. What are the political? Maybe you know this. What are the parents and the family members? What type of political aspects do they follow? I mean, are they Democrats or are they liberals or what's their situation?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't really tell you. Everything is also with the political scene.
Well, you're breaking up. I can't make that out.
Better?
No, I can't. You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Boy.
Yeah. Go ahead. Try to say something.
I'll call back in.
Okay. All right. Okay, so what we were talking about here is a political aspect of what I'm reading this verbatim. Thank you, Nick. What Tim is talking about is a political aspect of what motivated them to take the action that they did, and I think there was a lot of different motivations here. I think they have the state involved with the experimentation. They have, of course, the distaste for Tim and for Pat discussing the Constitution and things that are, don't seem to be right. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to put Tim back on. One minute, Tim. Let me get you off speaker. Off mute. Tim's on mute right at the. Okay, Tim. Tim.
Hello.
Okay, you there? Yeah, I can hear you now. So basically, the diplomat, he travels all over. He travels all over the globe, and what he does is basically get himself involved in other countries. And Nick says that it's possible he's an economic hitman. And
there's a good chance.
Mm-hmm. just like some of the other people we know out there that have admitted to doing just that. So that's very possible. So your values and Pat's values as to what's taking place around the country and the way it should be is not necessarily that of the family. So that would be another, a situation where they would want to, in fact, gain opportunity in not only shutting her up, getting rid of you, having Strong and their associates back in Pat's life. They have the opportunity to steal all her money and steal her estate. So it sounds to me, for the criminals, it's a win-win as long as Pat is incarcerated in this hellhole. They all will get their way.
They're all making money.
Right. So the motivations are there. The motivations for these activities that are taking place to Pat are there. There's a lot of people involved in this mess, and some in very, very high places. Now the situation is how to get her out. That's a question that I'm sure you've been thinking about for quite a while now, and a lot of other people who are assisting you, are talking about that type of thing. But I want to continue a little further in the story here because I don't think it's come to its conclusion yet as far as what's going on. Now you've been to Strong, you've been to South Winds, okay. You've contacted a PI that ripped you off. Obviously, somebody probably got to him. Correct? What was his idea of, what did you want him to provide, and what did he fail to do?
He was first. It started out where he was going to get a lawyer and provide a video, full-length video on the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I never did get an attorney, a real attorney. Just kind of like sent him money, and then it was for advice, and it was one excuse after another. But it got to the point where his volunteer investigator was going to finish the video and put out the first part of the video, and then he just dropped off the face of the planet. I don't know what happened to him.
Well, did he ever? He was supposed to go to the hospital and take pictures of what was going on with Pat and try to see if he could get any interviews on tape. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we did schedule this actress, Tyra Farrell, which is Mr. Kamal, which was the investigator's wife, agreed to come up and visit Pat. Mm-hmm. And at the nursing home, they refused entry. Channel 13, the local news, was actually there at this incident. They kicked everybody out. I never tried to enter the building, was just sitting out in the car. Mm-hmm. And when we left, we went around to the side at least to say hi to Pat through the window up to the second floor. And hospital sent out an employee in a car, and she almost ran somebody over, smashed the vehicle, and then left the scene of the accident. And we tried to report it to the police. The police wouldn't take a report. The cop said we were giving him said Mr. Kamal was giving him a headache, and that the judge was going to know about this, and the attorney general. Whatever, and I got arrested a month after that for trespassing and harassment. I was charged with.
How did Channel 13 get there?
Mr. Kamal had contacted them. We went down to there into the studios. We did interviews for over an hour. They were going to do a 2-part series on it, and then somebody had gotten to the news about it because it ties in with the brothers and the Catholic Charities, which ironically enough, after that story was pulled, the Catholic Charities were running a lot of ads on the news that week. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but it sure seems ironic.
Now, Pat's parents, her parents are deceased, correct?
Now they are. Her mother had just passed away about a month ago. And since Pat's been placed in this facility, this family does not go to see her. I've been the best I can trying to provide for her with getting her underwear and socks and stuff because her guardian doesn't care. Her hair's down way past the middle of her back because they don't bother cutting her hair, and I'm not sure about her nails. Nick might be able to tell you about that. But
the mother was controlling and the father was passive. And the father passed away also?
Yeah, Pat took care of her father when he got sick years ago, and he passed away. He was a World War II vet, very nice religious man, and that's another aspect where the family did not. We were accused of being in a religious cult at one point in the hearing, and I'm not sure they dug up something on a guy on the internet and blew it out of proportion, and all of a sudden, bingo, chango, now we're these diehard religious nuts going to move to a compound down in South Carolina, which was totally bogus. It was just like, wow.
So actually now there's no matriarch and there's no patriarch of the family,
No.
and there's two brothers who obviously are attempting or have literally taken control of Pat's life and forcing her into the situation that she's in.
You know,
along with others who really can't be named at this particular point in time, but I do feel that if you were getting requests, if Pat was getting requests for further diagnoses from Strong and experimentation which took place in her life, I would think that they would strongly involved in these types of in the situation as well.
Right.
Why was Pat estranged from her children?
I'm not really sure. I know when Pat was, before I met Pat, she had the kids, and her husband was a little older and worked at a university and started hooked up with some younger woman and left Pat to raise these kids, and she struggled on her own for quite a while, and no support from the family whatsoever. So
I see. So she didn't feel the need to fight for the children?
She took care of the children, Pat did, after the husband left. But it got to a point she couldn't manage the kids. They were getting a little unruly, and she apparently had met some gentleman and moved up to Canada for a period of time. And so I don't know if that affected the children or not. I'm not sure, but I never noticed a very close relationship. It was superficial. It wasn't, genuine. They don't come and see her, and they don't question why she's in a nursing home. And even does the family, and even at the court, every one of those family members said she could function on her own and she could do fine.
Mm-hmm. Now, Nick says that her children actually aided in her imprisonment. Is that so?
They aided in her what?
In her imprisonment, and they continued to do nothing to save her.
They've done nothing to stand up for her, no.
Interesting.
They see that this family does not want to go against the system. They're all the same. It's kind of strange. They all think that
I find this interesting that the private investigator that you hired, Diop Kamau, of the Police Complaint Center, and he can be found at policeabuse.com. So he was a private investigator.
He actually is a witness to felony criminal false police reports too, and I really haven't gotten affidavits or any. I get calls from him every once in a while. We're going to support you. We're going to do this. We support you, but he's not going to do anything.
Okay, so basically, right. What are you doing right now? What are you up to right now with this case?
Well, at this, I filed the court papers are being served by the marshals. Hopefully by Monday, they've gotten served their packets in the mail by green card, so they've gotten their summons and their complaint, so they know that that's going on.
You filed a summons and complaint to appear in court regarding this case.
For conspiracy and fraud, and a couple of the brothers against the one brother, because he's a New York State official or whatever. So we're going to start out with the brother, and then with this, as this progresses, hopefully we can pull complainants in this. But we thought it would be better to start out with a limited amount of complaints against people, and then as it gets into there, we can start subpoenaing the rest of them because they co-conspired with all these other people.
Do you have a lawyer right now that you're working with?
No, I'm doing it myself, and I have I'm working with a man named Carl Weston.
Okay, so you're handling this at this point pro se, unless
Pro
somebody
se.
is willing to step in as a lawyer somewhere down the line with this, because I think that
I wouldn't give a lawyer a dime right now. Every single one of them has taken my money. I've probably at least 100 attorneys, and that's coast to coast. I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all the same. It's always the same. There's something very sinister about this healthcare system when it comes to guardianships and stuff like that. It's almost like they are immune to anything. You don't go after a guardian.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems to me right now that the lawyers are not looking out for the benefit of their clients; they're actually officers of the court. So when it comes to who they're actually representing, is really the court, and actually, respecting their licenses, and in fear thereof of them being removed as a lawyer because they're not playing the game with the court.
That's part of their own in their own jurisdiction, Corpus Juris, the second edition. I believe it states that attorney, his first duty is to the court, second duty is to the other officers of the court, and then the third is to the client. So you're at the bottom of the list when it comes to stuff like that.
Right. Now, it's going to be necessary during the course of this activity. When do you plan on being in court, by the way? What is the date? Do you have one yet?
I'm not sure. I'm hoping I assume what's going to happen is they're going to put a motion in for a 12 FB, which will be failure to state a claim, and then we're going to have to, resubmit more paperwork and then keep continuing fighting.
Well, you are filing a claim now. Are you filing monetary damages here?
Yeah, it's a $2 million damage.
Okay, so there is a denomination that you're starting out with.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Send a message, more or less.
Okay, and of course this is going to demand the release of Pat.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, will you be bringing witnesses to the court?
Sure. My friend Nick, I'm sure he'll be there, and my mother, which is 80 years old, she's a first-hand witness, and she's blown away. She was very innocent about the system before this.
Right.
And she's woken up. She says, She says you really, it's hard to even tell people about this because most of them, you can't believe it. People don't believe it. They don't want to believe that this is happening. There's always, there must have done something, or there must be something you don't know about. And they think that the government doesn't make mistakes and that they do everything in the light of light.
Yeah.
It's just not true.
Well, I mean, people find that out when they become victims of the system. That seems to be what we're looking at here. I mean, everyone, involved in this attack, this crime on Pat, in one way, shape, or form or another, it seems to me anyway, has something to gain. Do you think that?
Every single one, even her employer.
Let me ask you something. That's a good point that you raised. What would be the benefit of the employer?
The employer, 2 weeks prior to this, she notified her employer that her job was making her sick. Her doctor had informed her that she needed to.
Oh, I see. What did she do?
She was working in an accounts payable clerk, but she worked in an electronics manufacturing facility where they made musical electronic devices and stuff, and there was a lot of fumes and stuff in the factory that were actually potentially leaching up into the office. And I have a meter that it measures bioelectric feedback, and it just shows the dirty electricity that comes out of some of these outlets if they're not set up properly. And where her work area was, the reading should be around 50. Her area was coming in at over 2,000. So she was being exposed to a lot of electromagnetic energy, plus she was having problems with carpets. When they would put a new carpet in, she'd get sick. And so she was an environmentally challenged person is really what it is. She's very, to allergies.
Yeah, well, she's sensitive to certain things within the environment, and that's there's many people that are. But from what I see here, at every turn, somebody has something to gain by her demise.
It gets better because if she were to die, and she's not going to, but if she were to, there's a good chance that her employer will benefit because she has. We don't know. I'm not sure who these people are, but she has 2 life insurance policies out on her that she didn't take out on herself. It was from her employer.
Really?
And I believe that it's a COLI policy, corporately owned life insurance policy.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So if she dies, they don't necessarily get the money, but they get a big tax write-off.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. Now, I've heard of this before where a lot of people work and their employer takes out an insurance policy, and believe it or not, some of the employers actually do have their employees killed for the benefit of the money.
That's
and they
right.
wait till usually when the person is no longer there. You'll usually, job mob them, railroad them out of the job first, and then wait a while, and then start with that.
That's right. As long as they pay the premium on that policy, they can get it. They can get the money. And her brother being an accountant, who knows if there's another policy out on her with him? I don't know, because he's the kind of man that has power of attorney over 4 other people in his family. He seems to be the guy that you go to take care of all your finances and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and that was the first thing he managed to try to, acquire when they put her away, was her checkbook. And she wasn't.
Explain that. What do you mean they tried to put her away with the checkbook?
Well, I mean, when they got her and had her incarcerated at Strong Behavioral Health Clinic,
mm-hmm.
the first thing the brother did was get her checking account or checkbook, and he stated that he had power of attorney over her, and he never did. So I believe in court, I asked Pat, did you sign anything? And she says, I don't think so. And I go, do you want your brother, to have power of attorney? She goes, no, I want you.
Mm-hmm.
We regard each other as husband and wife. So he was flapping something at the hearing, from what I heard, stating he had power of attorney and this and that, but he really didn't. I think it was an act. I think it was all for show.
Well,
thing.
I mean, how did this come about that if he does have power of attorney, has he ever made any effort? Obviously, he hasn't made any effort to prove it to you.
I went to the court records. The only power of attorney I saw in there was from 1991,
mm-hmm.
20 years ago, from her, before I even knew Pat, from her younger brother.
Why did she give power of attorney to a younger brother?
I don't know. I think she may have been going through a divorce at that point or something. That was 20 years ago. I'd have to ask her.
Well, he is an accountant, right?
That's the younger brother that she gave the power of attorney to over her health stuff.
Okay.
That's the 20 years prior, and now the other brother, the 911 gentleman, is professing at court that he had power of attorney, but he never did. And let me tell you, he was upset when the court did appoint a guardian, because he lost control of the assets. Yeah.
So what about making a false claim in a courtroom? Making perjury statement?
Yeah. I've tried to. I'm not even sure what transpired at that hearing, because I wasn't allowed to even attend it till the last half hour. They kept me out of the hearing, so I wasn't even allowed to hear any accusations on us or anything. Are
you able to get the transcripts, or are they sealed?
The court will not release them to me.
Interesting.
Executive law or something, they say, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. These are public records.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But apparently, like you said, they're under seal.
Mm-hmm. Well, if they're not, you need to get a hold of the transcriber. The person who
did at one point. I did. And she was going to get me the transcripts, but then she called back and said,
they got
I can't give you those. You have to get her attorney to acquire those for you.
They got to her.
Right. That's right.
You have to get the attorney. An attorney is able to get those records? That's
what she said. Yeah.
Well, why don't you get a hold of an attorney and just hire them to go to the transcriber and get the record?
I've tried. $14,000 trying.
Wait a minute. Let's hear this story. This is part of a story I'm not hearing now. You had a lawyer for $14,000?
Well, I hired one for $8,000. He came all the way from Albany, New York, because I couldn't get any locally.
Right.
And he dragged his feet and stalled. And I said, I asked him, we need to get these transcripts. We need this and that. And we'll get a motion in. We'll do this and that. And he dragged his feet. The end result was, they said that she could not have an attorney, that she already has an attorney, and the guardian is not going to allow her to have an attorney now. So she's not allowed to even have her own.
What?
Oh,
now the guardian is not an attorney?
No. But the court stated that the guardian can get an attorney to represent her. And the guardian had previously stated she could have an attorney initially. Mm-hmm. But then when they found out that this new attorney was exposing her abuse, that's when they said, you are not going to represent her now. You're done.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? There's a problem there, too. There's a problem there now, too.
I wrote her attorney that's representing her now, the first attorney that represented her, I wrote a letter about the second attorney into the Mental Hygiene Legal Services. Mm-hmm. The investigator was the first attorney on her case that didn't do anything, and he investigated the second attorney and basically said that he didn't do anything wrong. Everything's fine.
The whole thing's collusion.
It's really too much beyond. It's really a lot to comprehend.
Well, I can see the pattern here. As I say, I've been doing this a while, so I see the patterns here. A guest asked a very good question. Was Pat's father involved in military intelligence? Do you know?
He was in the Army, and he was like a grunt back in the World War II. Oh. And I know he didn't. He was in combat, so I know he has a lot of.
Combat vet. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Now, and her mother was she was going to Cornell University back in the 1940s for home economics, which was really kind of socialist as far as I'm concerned, but...
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the places making the money here. What's a nursing home charge?
Been there a long time. On their website, it's about $290 a day.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's...
It's been in there 1,000 days, almost.
So we're talking like $10,000 a month.
$10,000 a month, plus the drugs.
Right, plus, yeah. Plus, now who's paying for that? She has insurance companies paying for that now?
I think she has Medicaid. They forced her with Medicaid and Medicare. She refused to sign the documents. She initially signed the Social Security, and then I told her, Pat, you don't have dementia. And she's like, oh, I know I don't. I go, well, get your papers back. Mm-hmm. So she got the papers back, but she never wanted any benefits at all whatsoever. So I imagine it's the state's paying for this.
Well, I don't understand now. How could she be signing documents if she's incompetent?
Yeah, that's a good point.
How could the facility be asking her? Could they claim she has dementia? Okay, so how are they asking her to sign legal documents on her behalf? Isn't that a conflict of interest? That
it surely is.
Well, I would certainly bring that up. I think that sounds like that sounds like it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, initially the brother was saying, well, Tim, just have her, because they were all coming to me because they were saying she won't sign the papers. Tim, get her to sign the papers.
Now they wanted you to help them railroad her.
Yeah, and so they sent the daughter up there. She came all the way up from Philly. The mom signed the papers, and the brother, and they were all and then they called me up and said, listen, she needs the money, and it's going to help her, and blah, 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 blah. But but it really what I found out is there's grant money. When you get a dementia label, there's a lot of grant money, and there's a lot of perks that go along with that from the state.
Well, there must be a lot of grant money, being that you was a research and development project, during the Manhattan Project.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're more than happy to finance any other legal activity they'll perform on her, and they probably are. And you know what? They may be very afraid that if she leaves there, she may be diagnosed to have other things that have happened to her there. Right. Not that it's very easy to do, I can tell you that, but maybe that's another reason why now they're scared to release her after what's happened there.
And the funny thing is, I don't have any restraining orders for me visiting her, but there is a list, and I don't understand by law, a patient has a right to see whoever she wants to see. She's basically by law, she's to treat where she is now as her house. So if somebody wants to come and visit, if it's in normal times, they can not refuse any contact with her. But what they're doing is saying, I'm threatening to kill people, and I'm out of control, and it's like their stories don't match up. It's just like, why would I be like that? I want to see my wife. I don't want to create a disturbance. I want to support her. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
you
they're
know,
using the
Nick
old-
brings up a good point here, Tim. That you know, she was deemed legally incapacitated by the courts under the false pretense by the medical diagnosis. You know what I'm saying? And yet, since they diagnosed her again, I'm going to say this again. They diagnosed her with dementia, and then they put legal documents in front of her to sign regarding the payment of insurance.
After they had drugged her up severely with heavy-duty psychiatric drugs.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting, amongst other things that they're doing to her? Yes, this is a very, very big case and a very bad situation. And, you know, I don't know where you're going to find a lawyer, and I do think that you really need one, you know, that can handle this thing. And in New York, it's such a difficult thing to get a lawyer who's not going to bow down to these criminals. That's the problem. You know, you get a guy, he'll be gun-ho, and you might have experienced it already. He'll be gun-ho in the beginning, and then after you know, these criminals contact him and with a lot of threats and stuff like that, you know. Now she's, according to Nick, she's been in there over 1,000 days, 1,020 days.
1,020 days now. I have not seen Pat since December 8th, 2008.
What's kept you away?
They won't allow me to see her.
You can't see her at all?
No. They won't even let her use a phone.
Mm-hmm. And she's not allowed to use the phone. She's not allowed to do anything.
She sneaks to a woman's room real quick and she'll call me. That's the only... Because what they'll say is, oh, we witnessed her on the phone and she was upset. Mm-hmm. And from my understanding, she was on the phone saying, I want to get out of here, get me out of here. And they twist that into like she's on the phone and whoever she's talking to is upsetting her. So that's how they justified removing her phone. Because it appeared that she was being upset on the phone.
So she's being gaslighted. She's being murdered inside this nursing home.
Right, and if she acts, and every time she complains, they retaliate. I mean, this woman's been assaulted. She's been punched. She's been forced at one point to sit in a chair naked and be washed by another employee. And I questioned the guardian. I go, why are you doing this to her? Oh, we just did that to get her ready. Whatever that means. I mean, I don't understand what it means, but she was given dementia before she has dementia, so they're going to do everything to give her dementia now. They're creating the illness before the fact, basically.
Let me ask you something. What do you want people to do to help you? For the listening audience, what are your suggestions that you think are going to work here?
Well, if I could get the media involved and just get enough people to let them know people are aware of this, because I think they think that there's nobody out there that gives a crap and nobody will do nothing. And once people start asking questions, I think maybe they'll be a little bit less abusive with her. Maybe they want to get her out of their hair. I don't know. Well, I sure could use an attorney. That would be great, but I don't think there's really many around anymore.
Well, I mean, never say never. I mean, this is a case where there is a lot of money involved for somebody that is willing to take the case. You know, there's a lot of monetary damages here. You know, I mean, this is not a joke. What they've done to Pat is completely off the charts, and most certainly, you know, there's a lot of people responsible for crimes against Pat. So if a lawyer, you know, is a good lawyer, chances are you probably need a very, very big law firm that would handle this kind of case because, you know, they're the only ones that could insulate themselves from all this type of criminal activity that's going on around. A one-horse guy will be running for the hills very quickly, you know. But so in other words, people out there need to become involved in this. They need to try to blog this out. I would suggest that people, there was a telephone number to call, you know, for the media, although I don't know if they'll cover that or not. The more light that is spread on this case. Now, what is the address of where she is at right now?
She's at 425 Beach Avenue, Rochester, New York. And
that is
Shorewinds.
Shorewind Nursing Home.
Nursing home. Mm-hmm. So
this is basically, you know, a situation where she's being held against her will. She's not even ill. They won't allow any other medical people to assess the situation there, and they're not treating her for her physical illness, and they're not, this is a very horrible situation here, right in the United States of America.
It's torture. To me, if you look at the Patriot Act, there's a section under the domestic terrorism. This suits the bill perfectly. I mean, this is for political purposes, to coerce us to, it's just that it fits it.
Yeah.
It really is. That's what I notice in this situation. Everything that they say that I'm doing, they're the ones that are doing it. They're saying that I'm trying to kill her. They're the ones killing her. They're the ones saying I'm trying to poison her. They're the ones opening her mouth, poisoning these drugs down her throat against her will.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's how these criminals work. They have to turn it around and make it like you're nuts, and that we know what we're doing, ha ha ha, and this is a gaslight game. Okay, for the listening audience out here, this is gaslight. This is where everyone around you, everything is supposed to be fine and good, but there is another evil motive and evil purpose here that is actually happening to this victim. She's stuck in a place where she can't get out. She can't say what's happening to her in there, falsely diagnosed. They are killing her literally for numerous reasons. There's a lot of motives here, a lot of monetary motives, as well as other types of motives here that are going on. And this man, Tim Bowman, and Pat Kobalak need the public's help in order to get Pat Kobalak out of the situation that she's in. And the more people that can become involved, the better. Do you have an email address that people can email you to, Tim?
Sure, it's TIMGOW, the number 11, at Juno, JUNO.com.
Now, I will put that information as well as a homepage of the website. If you'd like to see further information on Pat's case, there are some YouTube videos up on freedomfightersforamerica.com that have the story, that have some of the information. That is an audio with the nurse that you spoke to about what was going on with Pat. It's kind of low. It's kind of hard to discern, but if you listen carefully, you'll make out most of it. It's very important for people to get involved in this case. This woman will die without other people's intervention. She will die. I mean, this is how serious this case is, unfortunately. This is how serious it is. They want her dead there. Okay, I'm sorry to have to put it this way, Tim, but I'm being honest and open to the public here. If Pat does not get assistance, if people don't shine the light onto what is happening here, this lady will not make it. And so it's very important. Any humanitarians out there who want to help victims, get involved. You can reach me also, Chris at freedomfightersforamerica.com. We are making this audio and this recording right now, and we will add this with video and some of the other information, and we will further expose this activity that's going on, okay? So it's very, very important that people get involved in this thing. If you can donate money, if you can donate time to help blog out this information, if you can call the Democrat and Chronicle, okay, those are the local papers in Rochester, and if you want to reach them, it's at democratandchronicle.com, okay. Email the heck out of them, okay? Email them for all it's worth, and it's very, very important. I'm gonna put the phones on and see if anybody out there has any questions regarding anything they want to ask Mr. Bowman. Anybody have any questions out there? If you're on the telephone, hit *8 on your phone and you can ask a question. If you're on the chat, you can ask the question on the chat. Anyone have any questions at this particular point in time? Going once, going twice. Okay, no questions. No, that makes it pretty easy, doesn't it? There are no questions because I think we said, we really said. Is there anything you want to add to this?
Well,
make a last statement that you want to say.
Well, I just have a lot of faith that something good is going to happen and people will wake up to this, because at this point, that's probably the only thing that's going to give her a chance, is to get the average person to start, bringing this to the light, because it's not going to be the state It's not going to be the government. It's not going to be any of those people. That's the problem. It's going to have to be just average people making calls and letting them know, we know what you're doing. This isn't right.
Yeah.
So,
I told you, Freedom Fighters for America will do whatever we can to help you, and we will. And, we will further the media attention to Pat's situation. We will make every effort over the Internet to do so. We will try to get other groups involved in attempting to inundate this place where she's located at right now. I think that if people start calling them and start annoying the heck out of them over in that nursing home, they're going to get very nervous. So it will be necessary for people who can visit there to visit there, or at least insist on seeing her, and that may slow down some of the activity that's taking place.
One thing that's very relevant, they don't want people to visit her because they don't want her signing any papers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
so
they don't want her signing papers. She's not. Has she signed any papers at all?
Remember that she's told me, she says no, and I've told her don't sign anything right from the beginning. Don't sign any papers, nothing. She won't.
Well, that's good. I just hope they don't get her into a state where, she'll be willing to do anything that they say, because these psychotropic drugs and everything else that they have there, they can work you and work you and work you 24 hours, 7 days a week, and she must be a very strong woman to be where she's at still to this day,
Yes, Pat's put up with a lot of crap her whole life. Mm-hmm. And so, a lot of that stems from the family. So she knows how to.
The same people who are a problem now.
The
same people that could help her and save her life are the people that have instituted this criminal activity, and which is actually exposing her life to more problems.
They've left her there to die. Literally, they've really left her there to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really a horrible scenario. And I think that Guest 16 brought up a good point. Study the Manhattan Project, specifically the Health Project, in Rochester. And I think you're right also, Guest 16. I think that most of the problem does come from this research project. And I wouldn't doubt that, this was a main catalyst, or at least the catalyst that was able to fix the court, to fix the cops, to fix everything else that happened, that transpired here. I really think that's part of the problem here. The Department of, the National Institute of Health, or the New York State Health Department, and these research people and the projects people. I think they are a very, very big part of this thing, as well as the diplomat brother and and the accountant. I don't know what the involvement really is of the brothers, but I think that they do have influence, and I think it's very, very possible that they are. It sounds to me like they're part of the situation that's harming Pat. So, with that, I hope that this interview is as complete as it can be at this time. I hope again to speak with you, Tim, on what transpires next. So, if you want to call me, at my home and tell me what's going on, I'd be more than happy to. I will stay in contact with you regarding this.
Thanks, Chris. Yes.
And if you
I'll
can
let you know what happens in court.
Yes, please do. And I would also ask you to send me any documentation that you would like to be added to the video of this recording. Because we will turn this recording and make a video with it as well. So unfortunately, there's a lot of in-betweens because of the phone situation, but we will add any videotapes that you want to add to this interview tonight.
Very good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your kindness, and I want to thank Nick too, Nick Gentile. He's been a supporter, and he's been in the fight with me and hasn't backed down at all. And he's put up with a lot of crap and being threatened by being arrested.
Well, you have a very good friend there. I wish I had a friend like that when I was railroaded into where I was railroaded, because I was quite alone. And it's a very, very horrific situation about being falsely accused, dragged off the street, knocked out, operated on, and having no one there to believe anything that you say happened to you. As a matter of fact, the naysayers, when you're in a situation like that, can be almost as dangerous as the criminals themselves, because they don't believe you, and they're willing to believe anything that the people are trying to do you harm, okay, because they've already diagnosed you with a false diagnosis. So I can't explain to anyone that has not gone through this what a terrible, terrible, horrific situation it is that Pat's in right now. It's very, very critical, very critical. It's almost like being alive but dead in there. It is. It is. So I want to ask people to get involved. If you want to reach me, Chris at freedomfightersforamerica.com. If you want to donate some time to help blog or to do anything to help Pat Kovalak out of this situation. Tim, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. Nick, God bless you. I think that you're a great man, and I think you're a very, very good friend. And, you know, there are news stations, I think, that, in fact, that should be added to this. If you would email those to me, please, at Chris at freedomfightersforamerica.com. I will also add that to the webpage. I can't run the show and look at the links at the same time, unfortunately. But again, Nick is a very good friend, Tim. He really is. He's a very, very good man. And I'm glad that you do have some people on your side. I don't know everyone else involved here, but I do know that you do have other good people involved in this thing. So I'm very happy that at least, in fact, you're not alone entirely with this, and Pat. And between people out there who have hearts that want to get involved, I hope that you do, because this lady really, really does need your assistance. And I want to thank everyone for coming on to the show tonight. Thank you for coming on, Tim, and talking to us tonight with what's going on. And I want to wish you a lot of luck. And, again, please keep in contact with me. We are running out of time. We do have to end the show. I want to thank all the guests for coming on tonight, and thanks for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Freedom Fighters for America World Radio at www.freedomfightersforamerica.com. Thank you for listening into this broadcast. Freedom Fighters for America World Radio is sponsored by Freedom Fighters for America at www.freedomfightersforamerica.com and freedomfightersforamerica.us. Thank you for listening in.